How many of the 5 items in the left-hand column are exactly the same as the corresponding entry in the right-hand column? In order to minimize mistakes when analyzing a document like this for differences, it can be helpful to break the information down into small chunks, instead of trying to compare entire addresses or names at a time. For example, instead of reading the whole 8017 Old Pierce Street and trying to see if it's the same in the right column, we can start by taking just 8017, or even just 80. Indeed, we see the 80s sync up, but already we found a mistake. One column has 17, while the other has 77. As a 1 and a 7 can look similar, it's best to keep a sharp eye out whenever either is involved. Next, we move on to the name of the street, Old Pierce. As both columns agree to this, we can move on. Finally, we pay attention to the type of street listed. This is another area where it's easy to make a mistake. Sometimes a street is swapped for a drive or an avenue, etc. In this case, both streets are called street, but because the address number is different, we can mark this as our first mistake. Using the same method of number, street name, street type, let's take a look at our next address. We'll start by comparing numbers, and we can see that both are 986. 8 and 6 are also numbers that can be confused, so in general, we'll want to keep an eye on them. As everything's all right here, we move on to the street name, which we see is Jade in both cases. And finally, street type. As we see both our drives, we can see there's no mistake here, and we can move on to our next choice. As we see that both numbers are 408, we can move on to street name. Again, we find both streets are Bayview. Moving on, we see a mistake. One is listed as street, while the other is listed as drive. This being the case, we can mark this as our second mistake. Moving on, starting with our number, we see both are 51. With our street name, again, we can see both are Green Rose. Finally, moving on to type of street, both columns agree on avenue. As these are exactly the same, we can move on to the next address. With a 4-digit address, it can be helpful to break it down into 2 groups of 2. For example, both our addresses start with 93 and end with 26. By breaking it down into more manageable pieces, we're less likely to make mistakes. Moving on, we see both street names are Barry, and both types of street are avenue. As both columns are identical, we can now clearly see that 3 of our 5 addresses are identical, and we can head to our choices and mark C3 as our final answer.